Hi, today's mini tutorial is on squaring up your fabric. And this is important to do because when you're cutting strips for a project, if your fabric is not squared, you'll end up with wavy strips. So it is important to get your fabric squared up so that you can cut several strips in a row, or however many strips you need. I'm going to demonstrate on a smaller piece of fabric, but this technique is used on any size fabric from fat eighths, fat quarters on up to width of fabric, the entire width of a fabric. So the first thing you're going to do is, what I do is I take my fabric and pick it up and I line up my selvage at the top. And as I kind of shift around a little bit, you can go ahead and you can kind of see the bottom shifts along with it, and you try to get that bottom to look as even as possible, not bowed out in any way. And so then I lay my fabric down on my cutting table and make sure everything's nice, laying nice and flat, including the fold right here. And as you can see on the sides, it doesn't line up, which is fine because that is why you're squaring your fabric. So first you take a small ruler and you lay that down and line it up with the edge of the fabric, just like this. And I'm going to move this over just a little bit so you'll be able to see everything. So as you can see, it's lined up right there at the edge. And since I don't want to cut off too much of my fabric, I want to try to save as much as possible. I try to get this as close to the edge, but still leave room to place my larger ruler right next to it where it catches both sides of the fabric. So you place your other ruler down and you butt it up against the smaller ruler. As you can see right here, kind of makes a 90-degree angle there. So you know you have it nice and square. So we are all ready to make our first cut here. So this of course is a piece of scrap, you just get rid of that. Now you're ready to cut strips. So I'm just going to cut a 2.5-inch strip off of here. So I line it up, place my hand, and cut my strip. And you can keep continuing to cut strips. If you have a big piece where you're cutting a lot of strips out, I would say after 5 or 6 strips, you might want to check and make sure your fabric is still squared, because it can shift when you're moving rulers across it, and then you could end up with bowed strips. But a smaller one, you might not have to, like a small fat eighth or a fat quarter, you might not have to readjust. But if you're working with a half yard or a yard of fabric, you might have to readjust. So as you can see, I am laying my strip out and it lines up perfectly with the line on the board, so you can tell it's a nice straight strip. So now let me show you a strip where I did not square up the fabric. I just kind of laid the ruler down and cut, and as you can see how the center of this strip bows out and it does not come right up to the line. So that's what happens when you don't square up your fabric. You get bowed strips, and then you're going to end up, especially if you're using these strips for any kind of a border, you'll end up with a wavy and bowed border, and that's not good for any quilt. So I hope you enjoyed this mini tutorial on squaring up your fabric, and come back again the next time.